Romans chapter 15, verse 14. Romans chapter 15, verse 14. When Christianity came to America, it became a big market, and it became a hierarchy. It became a hierarchy. And so we have, and Romans chapter 15, verse 14, let me say this right.
I myself am satisfied about you, my brothers, that you yourselves are full of goodness, filled with all knowledge, and able to instruct one another.
Then turn to 1 Corinthians chapter 14, verse 29 and 30.
1 Corinthians 14, 29 and 30.
If the prophets speak, what they got to do?
Let 2 or 3 prophets speak, and let the others weigh what is said. If a revelation is made to another sitting there, let the first be silent.
The early first century church was an interactive setting. It wasn't a hierarchy that's readily produced in America today. It wasn't a hierarchy. So what I'm saying is, that's it. A lot of people view the pastor or the bishop as being the mediator between God and man. That's right. As being the mediator between God and man. And so they go into the church building and they sit passively today. That's right. And because they sit passively, they don't have the knowledge to go into the scriptures to confirm everything that's being presented. That's right. And they're not really being used. A lot of people say, I'm going to go to church on Sunday, and that's my worship. That's my day of the Lord. I'm going to go to church to hear the man or the woman of the Lord, and when they leave church, they say, well, I just worship God. That was their worship that they believe today. But in the Bible, the passage that he just read, we can conclude and we can readily state that the church was interactive. But because people view the pastor or the bishop as the mediator between God and man, therefore they become passive, and the ever-member functioning of the church that was done in the early setting has been eradicated. The early impression of the church was for everyone to become teachers eventually, and for everyone to prophesy, and for everyone to hear from God, for the edification of one another. But that's not being done today. When you go to church on Sundays, it's always usually one person speaking the entire time, and nobody else has knowledge of the truth. And so then when they leave the church, and somebody questions them about where does your hope and where does your faith come from, they don't have anything to say. And so therefore they end up getting brainwashed and they start to question their own faith. Because in actuality, they don't really have any real faith. Because they've been fed a wrong impression of Jesus Christ. In Isaiah chapter 30 verse 1, this whole thing was done in the Old Covenant. Isaiah chapter 30 verse 1 says this. It says, woe to the rebellious children that take counsel, but not of me, and that covering but for covering, that covers but for covering, but not of my spirit, that they may add sin to sin. The Israelites, they wanted a human king. When the righteousness of the will of God, he didn't intend for them to have a human king. He wanted them to be led by his spirit. And just like what happened with Moses in Exodus chapter 20, verse 19, they wanted Moses to be the mediator between God and them because they feared God to the point so much, or they didn't have a real impression of God to hear from God from themselves. And it was God's will then for him to connect with them spiritually, each and every one of them. Disciple, can you turn up Numbers chapter 11, 25 through 30. Numbers 11, 25 through 30.
Numbers 11, 25 through 30. Then the Lord came down in the cloud and spoke to him, and took some of the spirit that was on him and put it on the 70 elders. And as soon as the spirit rested on them, they prophesied. But they did not continue doing it. Now 2 men remained in the camp, one named Eldad and the other named Medad. And the spirit rested on them. They were among those registered, but they had not gone out to the tent. So they prophesied in the camp. And the young man ran and told Moses, Eldad and Medad are prophesying in the camp. And Joshua the son of Nun, the assistant of Moses from his youth, said, "My Lord Moses, stop them." But Moses said to him, "Are you jealous for my sake? Was that all the Lord's people were prophets? Or that all the Lord's people were prophets? And the Lord will put his spirit on them." And Moses and the elders of Israel returned to the camp.
So even then, the Spirit of God rested upon 70 elders, and they prophesied, or they proclaimed the message of God. And they stopped, and then 2 others, they proclaimed they prophesied. The Spirit of God rested on them, and they proclaimed the message of God. And then some man came to Moses and said, "These people are prophesying, these people are talking about God, these people are not supposed to be doing that." So in actuality, he was calling them heretics. And Moses responded by saying, God would rather that all men prophesy, and that the Spirit of God would rest upon them. And so that's what's going on today. The American church has drifted away from the true counsel of God. When God intends for all of us to instruct and edify one another, usually when somebody else other than the pastor or the bishop speaks up, they call it heretic, and you got to stop talking. The same thing that was going on in the old covenant. There's nothing new under the sun. The American church and the whole impression of the church today needs a revolution. It needs a dramatic change to be transformed by the truth of Jesus Christ. Because what's going on today is a hierarchy and is led by the devil. Colossians chapter 3 verse 1 says, "If ye then be risen with Christ, seek those things which are above, where Christ sits on the right hand of God." The prosperity message, you can get rich, peace when there is no peace. It will lead you straight into the lake of fire. That's right. It will lead you straight to God, straight away from God, and it will lead you to the God of this current age, the God of this world. That's right. Which is Satan himself. That's right. Amen. We all need to wake up and get to this truth of the matter and redevelop the habits of the first century church and the Bible as a whole. We need to get back to the Word, because if it ain't in the Bible, like that song says, it got to be wrong.
Thing from what the religious said, they also did this to Jesus Christ. The Pharisees, Sadducees came up to him and said, "What authority are you speaking from?" And they was doing the same thing when they said that to him. And Jesus knew what they were doing. So what did Jesus do? He said, "I'll ask you this question, and if you answer me, I'll answer you. Did John the Baptist, did he come from man or did he come from God?" The Pharisees huddled up. They huddled up. They started to take counsel among themselves, which was wicked in itself. And they said, if we say from man, the people are going to kill us because they think he was a prophet. But if we say from God, he's going to say, well, why didn't you believe? So they went back to him and said, we don't know. So Jesus didn't answer them. But Jesus, and we all knew that Jesus' authority came from God. In John chapter 6, verse 45, it says, all who hear and learn from God will come to Jesus Christ. We need to make sure that that's who we hear and we learn from. Because men will lead us astray. So everything that we say, whatever it is that we say, make sure you go back to the scriptures. I pray that y'all is writing down some of these scriptures. He goes through them a little quick. And I pray that y'all was just writing down the scriptures at least to go back and read it for yourself. Don't believe us. Come on. It says, first is a man who put his trust in man. That's right. In Jeremiah 17:5 it say that. Jeremiah 17:7 it says, blessed is the man who puts his trust in the Lord, though. So y'all put y'all trust in the Lord. Go back and read the scriptures and read everything that's been said. And if anything, you can go back and go and look at the history of Constantine and check that out too. Because the early church, as it really said, and that's how we do our church meetings. we allow everybody to become interactive. If someone have a song, someone have a a revelation, whatever it is, let it all be edifying to the body. And that's how we do with our church meeting. And we just pray that people would get back to the true nature of the word and the body of Jesus Christ, the organic body. Every member is living. Praise the Lord.